Foolish mortals, what's up? Lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss the 2019 horror film Annabelle Comes Home. This film came out June 26th, 2019, directed by Gary Duberman. Duberman? Now, controversy with when this film takes place. Originally, I had written 1972 because that's what I kept reading the most of via Conjuring timelines. There's no official canon released Conjuring timeline. So a lot of us have been trying to figure it out, right? The issue with this film, and remember, this is my favorite Conjuring film, all 7 of them, 3, 6, 7. So this is the 7th Conjuring film, second of this year, to be honest. But why there's controversy is in the room of haunted artifacts in the Warrens' house in Monroe, Connecticut, we see Rory's music box with the clown and the mirror and the spiral, right? We are first introduced to Rory's music box in the very first Conjuring, which takes place in 1971. So, because of that problem, that's why everyone's like, oh, if this is the year after the Conjuring. And the newspaper article saying, are the Warrens a fake, that Judith is seen reading in the beginning of the movie is clearly about the Perrin family farmhouse and the 5 daughters and the Bathsheba witch and etc., etc. It is not. And let me explain why. Okay, this film starts out in 1968. We know it's 1968 because we have seen this same exact scene in at least 4 different versions of films within the Conjuring universe. The scene I'm referencing is Ed and Lorraine Warren are at the apartment of the 2 nurses that are in possession of the Annabelle doll. So they are the last people to own this doll prior to Ed and Lorraine getting the doll, okay? We know this takes place in 1968. It's referenced many, many, many times. Then Ed and Lorraine take Annabelle home, but then there's chaos going on by a graveyard, by... I need a fidget spinner. By a graveyard, by a highway. Lorraine literally says, you know, she's a conduit. Like, the spirits are drawn to it because of the ram demon that has attached itself to it, basically. So they finally bring the doll home. 1968, they finally bring the doll home. They put her in the plate glass, which is glass from St. Charles, St. Patrick, I don't know, some cathedral somewhere, because it's blessed. So then the evil's contained, etc. Then, it literally says on the bottom of the screen, 1 year later. So that's telling us it's 1969, right? Because the nurses had the doll that Ed and Lorraine Warren took in 1968. So 1 year later would be 1969. The entire film takes place in 1969. That's when this film takes place. After rewatching this film for the 30th time, I completely... This is the fact. It takes place in 1969. The fact that Rory's music box is in there and you see the Crooked Man's plaything, I don't know, which we don't see until 1977 for The Conjuring 2, I'm going to leave that up to the spooky magic of the ghost world, because there is no logical explanation why the camera pans to those particular items, nor why those particular items are on the shelf if the film literally says 1 year later. Because 1 year later is 1969. We don't get Rory's music box in that room until 1971. We don't get the Crooked Man's music box until... There was a crooked man, wear a crooked hat, right? Who had a crooked smile, that guy. We don't get that until 1977. So there's a 2 and 8 year difference between when this stuff is, and that's why there's a lot of confusion with when the hell does this movie take place, because no one has actually said verbatim what year this takes place. Everything else is kind of labeled, but this is based off of what I explained. This takes place in 1969. So in 1969, in Monroe, Connecticut, and Lorraine are going on vacation. They have their babysitter, Mary Ellen, taking care of Judith, who is young at this point. She's what, 10? 11? Something like that. Mary Ellen has this friend, Daniela. Mary Ellen likes this boy, Bob, who lives across the street from the Warrens. Bob's got balls. Ha ha ha. So there's a lot of comedy in this film, but there's a lot of heart and sadness and drama. Drama, aside from all the scares. So then Daniela's father passed away the year before. She was driving, they got in an accident, he died. She blames herself. So she goes into the Warrens' room after breaking in, basically, and after inviting herself over to hang out with Mary Ellen and Judy, she touches every single thing in the room, tries to talk to her dad, unleashes Annabelle, and then her father comes back all possessed like, but it's all these dark spirits playing tricks because Annabelle's finally out. Now, when Annabelle's out, Annabelle wants a soul. So there's knocking at the door. We see a little girl in pigtails, B, from Annabelle Creation, whose name is Annabelle, tapping on the door, and she's like, "Can Annabelle come out to play?" And then Mary Ellen's like, "I'm sorry, there's no Annabelle here. I think you have the wrong house." And then B says, "Yes, she's here. She's right behind you." And then she laughs all creepily and disturbingly, runs away. There's a terrifying scene where Annabelle jumps in bed with Judy and then turns into B, and then Judy throws Annabelle onto the floor, and there's this like spinning projector thingy with light, and the shadow is Annabelle standing up. Then the shadow turns into B. Then the B shadow turns into older Annabelle Higgins, whose real name is actually Janice, right? We learned that from Conjuring 2. And then that entity, that shadow turns into the ram demon thing shadow, but then the ram demon thing is next to Judy the entire time and roars in her. Oh, I'm getting chills. It's just a trick of the eye, and it was just so beautifully done and terrifying. And then when they run out, and there's all these things, we are introduced to so many new characters within this character ghosts within this movie. We have the ferryman, who's a beautiful character. We're introduced to a hellhound werewolf from London. Awesome, came out of nowhere, randomly attaches itself to fog. Super cool. Reminded me of Teen Wolf, without a doubt. We have, who else? The Bloody Bride. We have the samurai guy. We have that TV that, for some reason, tells the future, like a couple minutes out. We have that creepy phone. We have so many different things. So many things. And all hell breaks loose, right? And it's just a continuous scare fest of, oh my god, constant. For the last half of the movie, it's constant. But in between all of the constant scare stuff is heart stuff. Like, Daniela is devastated that her dad's not at rest, and she still blames herself for for him being killed in that accident. Mary Ellen is having terrible asthma attacks, and because she can't get her inhaler. Bob is just trying to woo Mary Ellen. There's a hilarious moment with a pizza guy as well, saying woo her. Then eventually, they all tell Ed and Lorraine when Ed and Lorraine get home the next morning, after they finally get Annabelle back in the case and lock it. And then there's the moment of Judy's birthday party, and kids come over, and etc. So then there's a moment where Lorraine takes Daniela to the artifacts room, and she says, to the darling Daniela that, she was speaking to her dad, and, he wants you to stop being hard on yourself, and he misses you, and, you're young. And they laugh because Lorraine's like, when I was your age, I didn't tell my parents, and I ran off for 3 days with a boyfriend. And Danielle's like, I unleashed a demon at your age, which is my age now, so not the same. And then Lorraine's like, hey, man, no, yeah, you're right. And then they share a little laugh, but this is after, breaking down, Lorraine literally being the psychic medium she is, talking to her father to give Danielle a piece. This doesn't happen in these Conjuring films. This is the 7th film in the franchise, right? It is magnificent. Who would have thought that the 3rd Annabelle would be my favorite of all of the Conjuring films? It is so dramatic. It is so filled with heart. It is so, let's do this. It's so creepy and amazing. It's just kind of underrated. Nobody really talks about this film when they talk about Conjuring films, but this is by far my favorite. So I cannot wait to see how Conjuring 3 next September is. This coming September. So what? 11 months from now. I'm already terrified. Hasn't even come out yet. The trailer doesn't even exist. I am already terrified. It is going to be phenomenal. What did you think of Annabelle Comes Home, which takes place in 1969. And if you don't believe me, fight me. Let's do it. Comment down below. Mucho mahalo.